Hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Super. How is your weird semester going?
Weird as you can expect. You actually told me to get back on you regarding switching to chemical engineering, so I thought I'd update you about that.
Oh, well, you could do that now before anybody
Yeah,
else
yeah,
gets.
yeah. So yeah, apparently I can switch. Like, he didn't say there's any like qualms about it, and I would still graduate on time, so seems cool. And I've
That's
talked about
nice. Yeah, that's
I
very good.
talked I talked about what you mentioned for like completing a bachelor's in biochemistry and then switching into chemical engineering in graduate school. And he said
Yeah.
like that's not advised, but it's still plausible.
Ah, okay. What did they advise?
Like if I wanted to switch, I'd switch next semester.
Okay. So are you going to do that?
I have no idea. I'm so indecisive.
Yeah, yeah. So is there any way to kind of figure out what the critical classes are you would need and add them to what you're already doing?
Yeah, he like called me at like 10 p.m. and we talked about it for like an hour of him
Yeah,
saying
okay.
like specifically what classes I take every semester. So like I have it all mapped out if I wanted to switch over.
Okay, so you could switch and still graduate on time.
Yes.
Well, you know, 50% of you guys change majors.
Right.
So there's no, you know, no shame in that, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it's nice that you could do it and not take extra time. That's important information to have, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we're just visiting because we're all a bit early. How is everybody? Okay, Ari, how are you?
I'm really good.
How are you? So are you healthy? Everybody's healthy?
Yep.
Good. Not going to bars?
Nope.
Good. It's gonna be it's my new sign off of my class, right? It's like, don't go to bars. Oh, there's our speaker. Hi, Dr. Medley.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm just getting a few things set up.
That's okay. We've got a couple of minutes. We were just visiting and checking up on everybody and making sure everybody's staying out of bars and being healthy and all that.
That is a great idea considering we have to go back and teach in person next semester.
Yeah, right? It's
Yeah.
so weird, right? Yeah.
I actually left my house this week for the first time by myself, like without my partner and I like kind of going somewhere for the first time.
Do you remember where your office is?
I do, but I have to say driving, you know, independently all of a sudden was quite new. It was
Well, it's pretty easy though, because traffic is still lighter than
true.
Right? Yeah.
It's true. But yeah, I was like, wow, I have all this uninterrupted time in my car and hadn't had that in a long time.
Yeah, because we've actually been in the office for yeah. So of course,
Are you
we're very
on
lonely.
a rotating schedule?
Tell me again.
Are you on a rotating schedule?
No, there's only 3 of us and some students.
Mm.
Oh, we've got enough space to, you know, not be in each other's hair.
That's good.
So we just do that.
That's good.
So tell me, you guys, do a thumbs up if you're going home for Thanksgiving and not coming back afterward.
Is campus going to be open that whole time?
I don't know. So all I heard was, and maybe Dr. Medley knows, was that faculty were supposed to fix it so you could go home for Thanksgiving and not come back. But I don't know that they're like, I don't know what they're doing with dorms.
think
And
it's still so field specific, department specific.
yeah, but I don't know whether, I mean, there's no way they can keep, they can hope people stay home, but how are they gonna stay home? Like if they have apartments, they can come back, right? Because I figure you guys have probably had it with your high school bedroom, right?
So I'm an RA actually in Hume. And so presently what I'm doing is they're encouraging everyone to go home as far as I'm aware.
Right.
But the dorms will still be open so that if students want to come back afterwards, they can.
Yeah, I didn't figure they could close them since they have contracts, right? So, yeah, they're hoping that you all go home and stay there till the 12th of, and if you're going to get sick, you come back cured already. I think that's the theory, right? Okay.
Sure.
So I see that we're up to time. So, we'll get started. We are very lucky to have Dr. Medley with us today. You may have run into her well, you wouldn't have, but.
Not lately.
Yeah, she's in the honors office sometimes, but nevertheless, she is the expert. We got lucky last year when she joined us, UF, because she's the expert on all of the really prestigious scholarships that you guys are all strong potential candidates for, but none of them can you do alone. All of them you need help, and the help you need is what Dr. Medley can do for you. And last week we did one for the juniors because there are some things that are specific for the older students, but today we've invited the freshmen and the sophomores because there are some specific ones for you to learn about. Next year, come back and come and hear the one for the juniors. Okay. So at that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's exactly true what Dr. Donnelly said. I've kind of, well, I should maybe just show you the presentation that I
have to make you a co-host so you can share.
No, I've got it actually. She set it up beautifully.
Oh, so you could do it. Yeah, and we're recording too.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, so like Dr. Donnelly said, I oversee prestigious awards at UF, and I am housed and located in the honors program, though, yeah, mostly from my home as of late. Just so you're aware, in case you do have some non-honors friends who you're kind of hearing some things about, some of the awards I may talk about, and you're like, oh, I know so-and-so would be really interested in that. I do want to, let you all know that I don't actually work just with honors students at UF. I work with all undergraduate students, honors or not. I also work with all graduate students and even the professional students. So I was just working with a medical student who's applying for a Fulbright this year, for example, but law students, pharmacy, basically, and alumni, I should mention. So, some of the awards I'm going to talk about today aren't necessarily intended for alumni, but some of the ones I'll kind of at least give you a sneak peek at coming up in the future might be ones that actually you do come back and see me, years beyond your time here at UF and apply for even after you graduate, because I do work with alumni as well. So I am a double gator. I'm actually from South Florida originally. I left UF for about 10 years or so and went and worked at a few other institutions of higher education, and was really excited to come back in this role because honestly, as an alum of UF, I was shocked that this role didn't even exist before I took it. So there were a few really wonderful faculty members and champions on campus, and one person who did have it as kind of part of her job. But this is something that really, with as wonderful and competitive and amazing as our students are, really should have been around a long time ago, frankly. So I'm really happy that it's here, that we have, future plans to expand offerings as well. So hopefully, during the tenure that you're all here, you'll even be able to see the office expand and have more. I am going to talk to you about some awards today. And when I say some awards, I mean like very few of the ones that all actually exist out there. So it's going to be some of the really big highlighted ones, kind of the the ones folks have heard about and have been around for a while. But I work with students, when they're like, hey, I found this thing, can you help me apply to it? I'm constantly reviewing statements and have a really great network, frankly, of folks from around the US who, even if I haven't worked with that award before, I can immediately get in contact with about 10 other people who have. So, do come to me, even if you're interested in something that I don't particularly talk about today, because I'm not even talking about all the things that I have on my website. So definitely just some highlights to get started. This is kind of the flow I was thinking that we would go with. I'm kind of going to talk about what even kind of is all of this, just to give you some idea. The criteria that kind of is the most common for these types of awards that reviewers and foundations and associations and whatnot who oversee those awards will sort of judge applicants on. But I'm also going to talk about, the awards, like I said, that you really qualify for now, right away, as well as ones that maybe you could apply to all throughout undergrad. And also, like I said, a little sneak peek of the ones that I talked about last week with some of the older students and things for you to start planning as you kind of move forward. And then kind of some next steps. Actually, really quickly before I kind of then jump into that, I sort of want to do a quick little temperature take, if you all wouldn't mind. So just in the chat really quickly, if you're a first year student, go ahead and put a 1. And if you're a second year student, put a 2. And if you don't want everyone to see what you are, then that's okay. You can also just send it to me. That's totally fine. But yeah, in the chat, either to everyone or just to me totally works. So thank you all so much for doing that. That looks like a pretty
even distribution.
Yeah. So the next thing I actually really want you guys to do is kind of just give me a super brief, not like, the whole resume that you all have out there of what your major is, right? So not all 3 minors and all the other majors you're going to add in certificate and stuff, but just give me the quick major, right? Data science, great. Very cool. Good stuff. All right. Lots of STEM so far, which is wonderful. Thank you guys. Keep it going. Lots of engineering. Love it. We're going to definitely talk about some engineering appropriate awards, but also for environmental science, I've definitely got a few for you. I don't know is also great. Exploratory, hands down, still my favorite option for students to start pursuing. Really great way to find your footing. Absolutely great. All right. If you haven't put it in there yet, you're more than welcome to keep kind of putting it in there. But this helps me maybe kind of figure out some things to skip or even focus on when I get to some specific awards. So thank you all so much. All right. So we look today like we're pretty STEM or at least STEM adjacent for the most part. So that's fantastic. All right, cool. I'm going to pull that presentation back up. And like I said, this will help me tailor things a little bit, hopefully to what you're all interested in and potentially looking for. Okay, so as promised, what are we even doing here, right? What is all of this stuff? So prestigious awards, fellowships, scholarships, high impact awards, it all means the same thing. So lots of different sort of nomenclature and words to describe really kind of something that means the same thing. And that's really what you see here, right? Awards that aren't just for students at UF that are, competing potentially against their peers, but where you're competing against students from all over the United States and even for some potentially even all over the world. So hence we talk about them being extremely prestigious and highly competitive. Now, typically with the word scholarships and awards, you're often going to see dollar signs and think of some money. And that's great. And some of these awards do directly actually offer just a financial incentive. But I'll be honest in that most of them are not in the business of directly cutting you a check. What they actually are basically awards that are going to fund really, really awesome and potentially otherwise expensive to you opportunities. So you can see here in this picture that we have on the second person from the left is Hannah Lyons. She'll actually come up a few times in this presentation. She's now a first year student medical student at UF, but Hannah was one of our students. She majored in biology and history. And this is her in just one of the prestigious awards she won, actually. She got a fully funded summer in South Korea to go study Korean intensively. And by the way, she was a French minor. So yes, you too can, make an argument for how these things work and you have a competitive application. So Hannah, this is, like I said, one of the experiences. It's the Critical Languages Scholarship. And so there was no direct money being given to Hannah, but this was a totally cost-free to her experience. They flew her there, they paid for her lodging, for her courses, for all these cultural activities and trips that she took around South Korea, and did that for a full summer. So that was a really, really great opportunity. She has this incredible network now, right, of all these other students, as well as the faculty members and the staff members of that school that she had met. So again, a just really, truly transformative, very sort of life impact experience for Hannah. And that's at the heart, even though all of these awards fund something or recognize something a little bit different, it's a really, really high impact experience that they're providing. So we do have to stop and acknowledge to a degree how incredibly prestigious some of these actually are. Now, I will be honest with you, the Rhodes Scholarship, this is kind of the extreme example. It's a real example. These are real numbers for a real award, but the Rhodes is the one that everybody talks about in the most sort of hushed and revered tones, right? And yeah, if you want to go do a graduate degree at Oxford, then applying to the Rhodes Scholarship is definitely for you. Not everybody is a Rhodes Scholar because not everybody wants to go to graduate school at Oxford, and that's perfectly okay as well. But these numbers kind of just give you some sense of an idea of, especially with the most extremely competitive award out there, what are we really looking at about the overall odds of success, right? So in the US competition for the Rhodes, not the worldwide competition, but the US selects 32 students for a Rhodes Scholarship every year. You have to be endorsed by your institution. So you actually have to come to me very early on and indicate an interest, right? And because I have to write a letter on your behalf. So it's a very intensive endorsement process for you to even be eligible to apply for the Rhodes. We love supporting it, so don't let that intimidate you, but know that there's really kind of a lot that goes on with it. So of those 2,500 people in 2017, roughly, who actually sought nomination or endorsement from their institution, 866 students were successful. So 866 students got the okay and a letter from their institution to apply for this prestigious award. And that's roughly at about 300 institutions. So when you boil that down, the overall odds of success in 2017 of becoming one of those 32 people was 3.69%. That same year, Harvard's undergraduate admissions rate was actually slightly higher, right? Now, I know that there are probably some of you on this call that were accepted to Harvard. So you know that actually that's not a totally impossible thing. And not just the people who were accepted to Harvard make Rhodes Scholars like that, not what we're trying to draw here, but we do want to just kind of really draw attention to, this is a very serious competition. These applications are not something you fill out in a night, in a weekend, or frankly, even over the period of about a month. This is a very sort of long process in these applications because all that time is spent increasing your competitiveness. So if the odds are that low though, why do we apply? Well, first of all, you're going to not win that award every time if you don't apply, right? So 100% is the failure rate of applications that go unsubmitted. So keep that in mind just to kind of start, right? But a lot of students are like, okay, still though, Kelly, tell me the odds are not really that high, maybe not in my favor. Why would I bother applying? Well, there's actually a lot of really, really good reasons. And some of them I don't even really have listed here. But you do learn about yourself. And more importantly, you learn about how to write about about yourself, which is something you'll do again and again and again throughout your time in school, as well as whatever career you might have. It also really helps you formulate your own personal and professional vision for yourself. So you may, excuse me, have an idea of kind of where you want to go career-wise, or even, you know, with furthering your education. But this really forces you to sit down and look at the exacting steps that you have to take to get there, and to actually prove to reviewers of these awards that you know those steps and you know what it takes, that you are the sure bet that if they award this to you, that you have this plotted out. Your first and second year students, it's totally fine. You do not have to have everything plotted out right now. But this is part of your own personal professional development is, okay, I have maybe these 5 careers in mind I'm interested in. I need to know what it takes to get there and make sure I'm not missing doing something now that, you know, makes me ineligible maybe in the future for that, right? So it forces you to really kind of really invest in yourself, put time into yourself. And that's the best thing worth investing in. And the last thing I'll mention too, this process, or I mentioned it's here on this slide, the process of applying is really just that. It is a process. And you can use these awards that you apply to sort of as stepping stones for later awards. I know I mentioned Hannah a few slides ago. That was like her 2nd or 3rd prestigious award that she had won, right? And then she got into a very good medical school, so also prestigious. So she used this process of learning how to apply for these awards to just get better at applying for things. And that's really, really, truly, you know, a skill unto its own. This pie chart over on the right here, I do love. I do need to get some fresh new data, but I think this is important. At my previous institution, we sent out like a post-application survey to all of the students. And it was before they found out, you know, any sort of result of the awards that they applied to. But we asked all of them, so like, hey, regardless of if you win or not, right, what's your overall impression of the value of applying? Like, was applying for this worth it or not? You will note on here that no person said it was not valuable at all. So the 70 people, nobody said, nope, not helpful, right? Over 80% actually said it was very valuable. And I think that's really, really telling. And another 13% said it was fairly valuable, and only a small percentage then said it was somewhat valuable. So there is value in just applying as well. I will tell you, I'm at a point right now where I just really concluded working with a lot of seniors who applied for prestigious awards. And so now they're all turning into applying for graduate programs, right? Whether those awards they were applying to fund that graduate program, or they're kind of just, you know, spreading their opportunities for next year around. But all of them are like, oh, this is really easy, because I already went through this process of applying for the Fulbright. You know, I already had to articulate what my plan is for the next 2 or 3 years. And that's exactly what this one wants to hear too. So it really does make it a lot easier once, like I said, you go through this 1 or 2 times to start learning how to write about yourself and about your plans and goals. This is kind of a spoiler alert if something's coming up soon too, but it also actually is a lot easier on your faculty and those other people that you ask to write your letters of recommendation and write on your behalf. Because if they've already done it a few months ago when it's not as like busy and crazy hectic of a time, now that graduate applications are opening, well, they've already got most of a letter written for you, right? Whereas a lot of other people are now approaching them for the first time. And as someone who writes a lot of recommendation letters, you know, the first time I write a letter, it really takes time, and it takes some mental energy, and I really do have to set time aside for it. The second time I write somebody a letter, it's like no problem, you know, and I write pretty good recommendation letters. Like I tailor them to what you're applying for. You know, I'm not just like swapping out a name for something and sticking in the other. But the first time I write about you, there's a lot involved. the more I do it, the easier it all becomes. So those people who have already gone through this application process for awards, now that they're applying for graduate schools, it's all that even easier on their recommenders to help them out with applying. So that's something to really keep in mind, especially as first and second year students. I'm hoping that you'll start applying for these awards and building these mentors, right, of faculty and otherwise who continue to write on your behalf for a long time, that you continue to cultivate those relationships. But like I said, slightly getting ahead of myself. So what we want to talk about now is the criteria of applying, right? Or how you're going to be evaluated for these awards. So the first thing I want to put out there is there is absolutely no one person or one type of person who is a great fit for every award. And there is no one type of person who it's like, oh, these people should be applying for fellowships and all these other people should not. There is an award out there for everyone, but it is always about the fit, right? Like I was mentioning earlier with the Rhodes, I mean, if you don't want to go to graduate school at Oxford, like don't apply for the Rhodes Scholarship, right? Like you really want to evaluate, is this something, do I fit their criteria as they kind of describe it? Is this, thing that this award is offering even something that's going to help me meet my goals or explore my goals and options even a little bit more? So bear in mind, that everything that I talked to you about here, you're not going to probably run out and apply for every single one of them. And some of them you might only find like one or two things that you're interested in, and that's okay. You want to be discerning in that. And yeah, so talking about the most common means of evaluation, I'm going to go through kind of 4 of these one by one. You'll see letters of recommendation has kind of an asterisk on it. Because it's actually the thing I've been running into the most lately that is actually probably the one thing that I think universally I'm seeing all students need to improve on. But we'll talk about all of that. So the first thing that obviously any prestigious award is going to look at is your academic record. There's not a single award I work with that doesn't require at least, your unofficial transcript. It doesn't mean that number of your GPA is the end all be all, typically speaking. We want to look at a GPA in context. So did you take, courses? Is the curriculum that you established yourself appropriate? Is it relevant to your goals? And what are the grades that you got in those courses, right? That match that relevance and potentially what this award is applying for. Trends in grades. So maybe you started off and had a really bad first fall semester coming to UF. You picked a major that your parents or, a family member has a professional, relationship in that really just ended up not being a good fit for you, right? Or something you thought you did, you tried it, totally cool, moving on because it didn't work. That's fine. We do want to see trends and improvements in grades though. And that's something that's definitely looked at and reviewed by committee members all the time. But yeah, challenging and appropriate curriculum, if you are interested in going and learning Swahili, next summer, well, we offer Swahili at UF. Have you taken Swahili, right? Or have you indicated through some other courses, maybe an interest in African studies or African history? So there's a lot of things to think about. Are you doing research in that area, right? Doing conference presentations potentially. So just some things to think about on the whole of, are you applying for something that we can see through these kinds of more cut and dry records are appropriate and an appropriate fit. I'm not gonna lie, some awards really do have a 3.9 cutoff, and I am always incredibly candid with students if they indicate an interest to me in applying for an award that I just know that that number isn't gonna even get their application reviewed entirely. Again, I want you to be conscientious consumers of your time. Some awards also might say that to, apply, you need a 3.7 to be eligible, but I know you need a 3.9 to actually even get it really looked at. So yeah, I am honest with students about that, but most of the awards we're going to talk about today actually do not kind of fall in that 3.9 really sort of hyper academic GPA bubble for us. So co-curriculars are definitely really important here as well. I can't think of one award that doesn't at least ask something about co-curriculars. But again, typically asks about the ones relevant to that award and your studies and your goals, right? So you want to have relevant internships, relevant research experiences. If in your first year, you're like, I'm an astrophysics major, but I'm doing research in biology, I mean, that's okay. In your very first semester, that's totally fine. We want to use those as stepping stones to get you to your goals and get involved in more intensive and relevant research sooner than later. But, you know, don't feel bad if you're feeling as if there's a disconnect this early on. This is, again, a part of one of the ways that we help sort of evaluate that and get you to where you need to be. Yeah, so I also would focus on leadership. That is something that many awards like to consider and to have you talk about. But it says right here, and this is really the best way to put it, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about how you led, not what your title was. So if you're founding an organization because you see a critical need and thus you then end up becoming the president of it, like that's fine. But really, we want to hear less about you being the president of it than that critical need that you saw, like, you know, if there wasn't representation of a group or an interest on campus. That can also be really anything, you know, if you were the director of volunteers one weekend for one Habitat for Humanity project, but that meant that you had to like feed and get t-shirts for 300 people over a whole weekend, like that's really huge. That's demonstrated leadership, even if there wasn't like a really big, you know, fancy title and it was just kind of a one-time thing, right? There's a lot of skills that you had to employ. Leading 300 people to one common goal, that's a really big deal. So even if there wasn't a title for that, it was just something that you did, that is demonstrated leadership, and that's more what we're talking about. And yeah, this idea of connecting the dots to the long-term goal, like I've kind of already said a few times, you know, you want to just show that what you're doing, you want to demonstrate that it's relevant to the ultimate goal that you're trying to reach through that award. The third means of criteria, and this definitely comes with every award, is some element of self-reflection. Typically, it's going to come in the form of a personal statement, anywhere from 1 page to 5 pages. Usually 1 or 2 is the most common, but self-reflection could be some short response, but generally speaking, it's going to come in the form of a personal statement. And this is that narrative, right? So this is where you're not just filling in the areas of the application, you know, with like employment, things like that, right? GPA, credit hours, whatever, just that stuff you can quickly do. This is the part where we're spending a lot of time, where you're going to critically reflect on what that award is and what their mission is, right? What it is that they're seeking to fund and how you fit within that. So this is where we are really speaking to the reviewers. You have this opportunity to really talk about how you are the fit for them, right? You want to make sure, like I kind of said here at the bottom, make them believe that you're the sure bet and somebody that they want to meet. A lot of these awards do have interviews as well as part of their process for applying and for selection. So you want to write in a way that's convincing and somewhat not argumentative, but persuasive, and so that they are persuaded by you to either invest in you or be someone that they want to hear more from eventually. Self-reflection and personal statement, like I said, it's typically the thing that you spend the most amount of time on. And really the people who are the most competitive for any of the awards I'm about to show you go through multiple revisions. So the revision process is long. It is multiple times. It's not one time, someone, usually me, giving you feedback. With Fulbright awards, I'm really upfront because that's the award I see the most applications for, that typically an average of 4 revisions is going to be what gets people to the place that they need to be. Critical languages scholarship, I usually say an average of 3. So that is something that will take weeks at a time. And that's why you really do kind of have to plan out your applications for these, like I said, not overnight. Okay, so the letters of recommendation, like I said, I was going to harp on this a little bit. So every application is going to ask you for some type of recommendation or referee, whether it's a letter from faculty member or faculty members, or maybe your recommenders are going to fill out like a 5-question sort of response. They have some responses to some standard questions on the applications. You're going to have recommendations from people. So these relationships can be cultivated. I think that's really important, but they have to be maintained as well. 100% you can still go to the office hours of a professor that you no longer have for a class. You can go to the office hours of a professor that you've never had and never will have for a class as well, as long as you have a credible reason for it, right? But yes, you can find mentors. Faculty are generally eager to do this. It's actually very much a two-way street. Their investment of time in you now is really them extending their network for the future as well. So keep in mind that letters of recommendation, while they do take time to write, are something that we see as part of our job. But that said, there are some do's and don'ts to it. So you do want to approach faculty well in advance. I'm a 4 to 6 weeks person. Many faculty will want to know right when you hear about an opportunity. Some are okay as long as you do like 2 weeks in advance, but really 4 to 6 weeks is a kind of ideal window, at least to start, until you know what that faculty member's sort of individual feelings about how early to approach them are. And you need to be aware that like they might say no, and that's okay. And that doesn't always mean no forever. It might mean no for right now because they don't have the time or whatever it might be. But it could also be because you haven't really told them why you're asking them, or that maybe they don't know what they don't know what you're looking to apply for. So that could be a good one as well. But yeah, don't surprise them or be, just super informal or ungrateful about it either. I was telling the students last week, I will answer that question in the chat, by the way. I was telling the students last week, that I've only said no to a student 2 times in my career about writing them a letter of recommendation. One was a student who I'd met one time for about 30 minutes, and she asked me for it it was like 5 or 7 hours before it was due. That's going to be an absolute no every single time. I don't know any faculty member that would not say no to that. So don't do the most obvious thing and do those kinds of things. She was also very informal and very casual about it, and not respectful of like I had anything else to do that day. The other student I said no to asked me probably just shy of 2 weeks. And it really was a bummer because it was a student that I knew pretty well. We'd met several times. I knew, what her goals were and whatnot. But honestly, it was just at the time for me, there was no way I could have reprioritized it. It was the first letter I was writing for her. So looking back, if I had written her a letter before, maybe I could have actually done it. Maybe I could have written her this new letter for this other thing because I had written it for her before. But I just couldn't, at that point, there was no way to prioritize it in a timely way that would have been a letter worth me writing, worth her having in her application, or, something that, I would have been happy putting my name on. So I know the question, and Dr. Donnelly, I might have you also kind of, help out with this a little bit. The question we had in the chat, and I like asking Dr. Donnelly about this too, right? Because like I said, some faculty all have a few different approaches to these things. But what do you think? Is there a better time, to ask someone than others? My sense is no. I have better times just individually, but I don't think that that's a universal truth for everybody. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, hang on, Dr. Donnelly, you're muted.
Okay, am I on now?
Yep, you're on.
Yeah, I usually suggest to students not to approach faculty in the first week of classes where everybody's trying to get themselves organized, or at the very end where they're giving finals and grading.
Mhm.
Favorite story about this, though, I had students who would, call me and say, I wrote a faculty member an email who didn't respond. And I said, okay, let's get this straight. You wrote them in the summer, during summer break, in the
Mhm.
pandemic, when everybody was trying to figure out how to teach online. Why did you think they would answer you? Be mindful of what else is going on in the world.
Yeah.
But I would just avoid the beginning and end when people are starting or wrapping up.
Yep, that is good advice. Those are probably some good universal times to do it, because we do have to grade a lot very quickly, right, at the end of the semester. So yeah, that is definitely some good advice. And yeah, something I think that a lot of folks don't realize too is that a lot of faculty actually don't work 12 months out of the year. So there's many faculty at UF who basically they're only paid for 9 months, right? So they spend their summers, they're in the fall and spring. So they spend their summers sometimes abroad doing research. I know one faculty member who this summer she had off and she just holed up in her house and finished a book, like she started and finished a book. And so she, was very less attentive to her email. That doesn't mean I'm a 12-month faculty member. I think Dr. Donnelly is too, we're here for sure. But that is something to be aware of. If you are asking in the summer, you might even want to give more lead time just because some faculty are looking at things less frequently.
Yeah, and there's one other thing, just a general rule, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but you tell me at 3 in the morning on a Saturday if it occurs to you, but don't expect me to answer you.
Oh yeah.
I'll answer you Monday through Friday between 8 and 5. So, if you start your clock on how long you've waited and you started in the middle of the night on a weekend, don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my favorites are the ones that come at like 6:30 on a Friday and I'm like,
Right.
I need a break. Like this is going to be a while. So that's, very good advice too. Awesome. Yeah, good questions. And feel free if you all do have questions to put them in the chat. I may wait till the end to get to them or, address it kind of depending right away. So feel free to do that. So it did kind of already talk about what fellowships do. If I'm being totally honest, this is just a slide to give this screenshot of where you can sort of find information on the honors website. So honors.ufl.edu. And if you go under current, you'll see prestigious fellowships or prestigious awards, and that's where you can find out more information. The website is not pretty, but it is accurate. That is what I always like to say. There's not a ton of info on there. I'm actually working with our marketing person, and hopefully by February, I have a whole new redesigned section that'll be a bit more streamlined for you all. But like I said, it's not pretty, but it is accurate. So do check it out there if you're looking for more places to kind of just browse. Because like I said, we're now going to get into that fun part where we actually talk about some of the awards. But like I said, I'm not even talking about all of the ones that I even have on the website. So that's good to know about. So yes, the best part of this now, we get to talk about all the cool stuff that you can do when you apply for these awards, right? So this is that critical languages scholarship I was telling you all about earlier. Here's Hannah again, third from the left, with her time in South Korea. This is one of the many cultural activities. I think she had these lessons once a week as part of her required cultural activities, which is pretty cool. So Critical Languages Scholarship funds you to go abroad for a summer, usually about 8 to 10 weeks, and it funds 15 specific languages, most of which do not actually require any prior knowledge. So that's something to take a look at. And I will say for this one, the deadline is coming up in a little bit less than a month. So if you are interested, and you can actually apply for this award at any time while you're a student. And even actually, if you're a graduate student, graduate students can apply for this as well. So if you think, again, not now, but maybe when you're in graduate school, this is something you can absolutely do. Again, I know we have a lot of STEM people here on this, and this is something that they're definitely looking for. Hannah actually wrote her personal statement for Critical Languages Scholarship about like space botany. She had done this internship in a research internship in space botany. And while she was looking to do CLS, she was like, all right, I've got a French minor. Like, how on earth do I justify wanting to go and learn Korean? And she started to take a look at what South Korea's space program was like and really focused it on her past experiences and that as her justification for learning Korean. So that's something, you know, I don't want to say think outside the box because that sounds a little contrived, but there are ways that you can do this, even if you're like, well, I'm not, you know, a languages major, so whatever. There are reasons, and this is good practice for you of learning, you know, how to justify getting funding, even if you are in STEM. So yes, but again, to be kind to those recommenders of yours, if this is something you'd be interested in and applying for this cycle, start looking into it like tonight, and maybe even tonight or tomorrow, reach out to those faculty members, because as Dr. Donnelly and I just said, you probably wouldn't hear from any of them until early next week, right? So at the earliest. So definitely do that outreach, and maybe even prepare yourself a list of backup recommenders there. But yes, it is definitely still possible to apply for this award this year if you're interested, but trust me, it'll be there next year too. So if you are really interested in studying languages, but maybe you want to go for longer than a summer, maybe not, because summer is fine too. But maybe you are like, I don't want to do any of those 15. I have an interest in some others. The Boren scholarship or Boren Awards is a great opportunity. It does seek to fund more long-term study abroad, and it will give you up to $25,000 to do that. So whether that's a semester or an academic year. But one really cool thing with Boren is that for STEM majors, they actually really recognize that a lot of your courses can be really sequential in your degree. And so it's maybe a lot harder sometimes for STEM majors to actually just kick off for a semester or a whole year to go study a language intensively. So they actually have what they call the summer STEM exception for Boren. And so again, you would go for 8 to 10 weeks, but in this way you can propose your own critical language in your own country that you're interested in for study. Ray in here, who's you know, cracking up in this photo, he is a second year student now. So he applied and won the Boren in his first year of undergrad at UF. And he was one of those summer STEM exception students. He applied to learn Tajik in Tajikistan. And so unfortunately he didn't get to go last summer, but Boren very kindly deferred the funding and the opportunity for this upcoming summer. So hopefully he'll be able.
And you guys need to know he's one of our URSPs.
That's right. I always forget that, but that is
Yeah.
so exciting.
And we got one more coming up you'll hear about.
Oh, good. I love it. So the thing with Boren is that they do have, if you will, a catch. Some of these awards will, you know, they want to invest in you and spend a lot of money investing in you to earn these skills. But with Boren, their catch is that they then are like, okay, well, as the federal government, we're going to give you this money to go do this really transformative experience. After you graduate, you have to work in federal service for a year. So they do have a 1-year minimum. If you're someone who's interested in working for the federal government as a researcher, as a linguist, as you know, someone doing data analysis, or even something not related to STEM, totally.
Maybe a spy.
We have lots of students that apply to be CIA or NSA analysts, is the word, right, that they use. So this is a really great opportunity. And frankly, it's almost like a guaranteed job because you have these like newly acquired and, you know, critical language skills that maybe not a lot of other people in the US have. And so they do seek to hire Boren Award alums. Yeah, very rarely can a Boren winner not find a job with the federal government when the time comes. So this one is open and we do have a campus deadline of January 8th. I'll cover in a little bit the difference between just potentially a regular national deadline and a campus deadline in just a few minutes. This is something that I'm hoping a lot of you already know about. And if you don't, there is a session that either just passed or is coming up really soon from the Center of Undergraduate Research on REUs. So the National Science Foundation every summer has these awesome opportunities called REUs. It stands for the very boring research experience for undergraduates. But you can literally go to research facilities at other colleges and universities, or even some, other public or government research facilities in the US, and sometimes actually even around the world. Generally, these are STEM research, but again, for this crowd, that seems like probably okay. But there are some also, if your interest in STEM is related more to, developing STEM policy, there's absolutely some opportunities for that as well in there. I call this kind of the all-inclusive award, typically speaking, because they're going to usually give you a stipend. So they're going to pay you. They're typically going to provide you housing. Again, if it is, on a college campus, you might be moving into a residence hall that summer, but and usually without a roommate, there is that at least, and provide you a meal plan and, whatever travel expenses you usually need to get to your REU site. This is a great experience, and I'm going to talk in a few minutes about some awards you might use an REU to be extra competitive for later. So yeah, we do love REUs.
So let me tell you that yesterday was the workshop.
Yesterday, okay.
But they have recorded. Okay, that's the dog. They have recorded it, and it's not up yet. But in a day or two, it will
We'll
be
have it.
The CUR website, so you'll be able to watch it. Okay.
Yeah, definitely do it, because I'm just super skimming and kind of telling you the idea of what an REU is. And they're really, really great. And again, because they're summer, it's low commitment. That workshop will be excellent and do a far deeper dive with it. Many of these applications for REUs are not yet open. And their deadlines will be in the spring, but there's some every year that actually even have deadlines as early as December. So you really want to kind of already be scanning and looking at what they did last year potentially. This is, so that kind of ends you can apply for these awards at any time as undergraduates. Now begins for first and second year students only kind of section of the presentation. So Fulbright UK Summer Institute. I'm going to talk about a different Fulbright a little bit later, the ones you probably hear kind of more about, but this is sort of a lesser known but really awesome opportunity that pays for you to have about half of your summer spent in the UK earning credit for classes from UK universities. And here's just a few of the ones that have been offered in the past. Again, all inclusive for all of these, right? Your travel, the credits that you're taking, all the living expenses, and all the cultural experiences that they also, take you out on. If you're not at a university based in London, they usually take you to London for a long weekend, as part of it, and other sites around the UK. They usually have themes for each location. So Queen's University, Belfast, I had a student at my previous institution who did that one, and the theme for it and the courses that she took, and that's what their kind of cultural experiences were based on, was conflict resolution. Queen's University, Belfast actually has the foremost conflict resolution academic programs in the world. So really great opportunity as a first or second year undergraduate if that's something of interest for you. This university in Glasgow, they actually, I think, were the arts university last year. So again, really cool opportunities, kind of something for everyone. And notice, you do not have to actually be studying or a declared major in the arts to do that one. You just have to have an interest, and again, be able to persuasively justify that in your writing. All right, Dr. Donnelly, I know you like this one too. The Doris Duke Conservation Scholars. I assume that other than Dr. Donnelly and I, probably nobody here knows who Doris Duke is. She's kind of an obscure, sort of infamous person to a degree. She was a tobacco heiress. She inherited a ton of money, but was really very reluctant to be in the public spotlight. So she essentially moved to Hawaii, built this huge extravagant home for herself on the beach, and lived out the rest of her days surfing in Hawaii and giving away all of her money. And one of the ways she did that was by founding the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars. She did find conservation of the environment to be of extreme importance to her, and one of the things that she actually set up the most endowments and gave the most money to. She has since passed on, but those endowments still live on. This is, again, one of those opportunities just for first and second year students. And it technically is a 2-year program. I mean, you don't go away anywhere for 2 years, but they give you funding for 2 years. They set you up with a research internship as well as a professional internship. So again, you're seeing sort of that hands-on kind of STEM conservation work, as well as that policy side of things through the professional sort of aspect as well. The really cool thing for UF students is that there's actually 5 sites in the that these Doris Duke Conservation Scholars go, and one of them happens to be UF. You know, and one of them is Northern Arizona University, which is in one of my favorite places, Flagstaff, Arizona, gorgeous setting. But these other institutions as well, you can actually go, and those are the sites. Now, the really interesting thing about the site, the internship site location for UF, is that only students from these 5 schools are eligible to apply for UF's site. So that automatically, while this is a really prestigious award, makes the competition for the UF site much more limited, because only students from these 5 schools can compete for them. The other sites, students from all sorts of institutions can apply for, but the UF site is just specific to students at these 5 institutions. I want to say that Cornell was actually recently added as a location too, so they may be up to 6 there, but definitely worth taking a look at. The deadline is in December, typically speaking, but I know they had a much later launch of their application this year, so they may have moved that. So definitely take a look at the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars, especially, I know some of you said environmental sciences, so that would be a really good one to look into. And I should mention too, I'm going to talk about another award probably later, that the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars, if you do that program, you're like, I don't want to say a shoe-in for this other award, but you make a very competitive applicant for this other award that I'll talk about. So it kind of same story with the NOAA Hollings Scholarship. So NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. If you are from Florida, like me, you probably only think of NOAA when you think of hurricane preparation, but they actually do a lot of work year round and not just on hurricanes. They're actually all over the US, as well as at sea. This is one of, to be honest, they're smaller boats, they're smaller research boats in Hawaii, just kind of anchored off the coast of Hawaii. They're doing research. So some scholars in the past have won this award. And what's really cool is NOAA will actually pay for you to go around to a few different potential internship sites to evaluate them yourself, see if you think the research that they're doing there would be of interest to you. And then the next summer, you go and actually do an internship at one of those sites. NOAA Hollings gives a ton of money. Hollings Scholars is really, really cool, but you can only apply for it when you're in your 2nd year. So 2nd year students start getting on this, and 1st year students definitely start cultivating those faculty relationships, right? So that when you go to apply for this next year, you've got everything in line. Letters won't be, you know, even a question. They also, so NOAA not only pays you to do that summer internship and also pays for your travel to it, but they also give you a scholarship for your remaining years of undergrad. They also pay for you to go up to 2 conferences to present your research, and that can be conferences pretty much anywhere. And they also do an orientation. So you come and you do all of this networking, not just with other Hollings scholars, but with other NOAA researchers and people higher in this you know, branch of government as well. They also pay for housing, and they actually pay you to do that summer internship on top of the very generous scholarship that they already give. So if you are looking at the dollar signs, this is actually one that kind of provides quite a lot, including, like I said, that scholarship just as you're a student here at UF, in addition to all that travel and paying for internships and whatnot. So this is a really great award. that leads into this one, the Goldwater. So if you can become a Hollings scholar, you become even more competitive for being a Goldwater. And that the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars also as well, it definitely makes you competitive for it. Up here on the left, here pops Hannah, who we met before when she was in South Korea learning Korean. Hannah, like I mentioned, one of her degrees was microbiology, and she also did research in space botany, right? And so she actually won the Goldwater Award as a third-year student. This award is open to second and third year students only. So second year students, again, our campus deadline's November 9th. I'll talk about that again in a second, but one of those to really get moving on if you have an interest in it and a good strong background in research or developing your research skills. First year students, really get this on your radar for sure. Dr. Donnelly, do you want to talk about the wonderful Keshav?
He is one of our now junior URSP. So he was in the first group that come in. So far we've got a one Goldwater and one Boren. So I'm counting on you guys to
Let's get some other.
follow in their footsteps, right?
Yeah. Well, in case
Kelly, do we have any NOAA scholars?
not as of right now. No,
Okay, let's get one of those too. Okay,
for
guys.
sure. Let's get a few of those actually.
Yeah, let's get some
Yeah.
of those too.
Yeah, there's a lot of NOAA sites in Florida. So the other thing too is if there are people who are interested in actually doing research on a NOAA site, like maybe, near where they live, they can usually do that and kind of just even pocket the housing stipend, which is nice. But again, you should, pick your internship site based on how great and, helpful the research will be to you in the future. But yeah, Goldwater is really kind of the most prestigious award when it comes to recognizing research performance in STEM. And that's really STEM in all fields. So definitely engineering, for my engineers here, if you're not doing research, get in a research group, a design group, a lab group, whatever that might be. But yeah, Keshav is, like Dr. Donnelly said, now a junior, and he and I have been talking since we started working together on the Goldwater Scholarship, which he then won, which is super exciting. He and I have now been making plans for all of these awards that he's going to be applying for in his senior year to hopefully go to graduate school abroad in the UK. So he's also kind of in this pipeline like Hannah was to a degree of, he's got the practice of applying for an award. He's got, faculty who are in practice of writing for him. And he's definitely on his way to applying for a few other really great opportunities.
I was talking to him last night about Fulbright.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He could do some cool stuff with Fulbright. I could see him doing some. Does he want to go back to Norway?
No, he's, well, possibly. Yeah, actually, possibly.
Well, we'll talk to him together for sure. So the Dodd Rise is also a really, really interesting one. Most of you heard me talking about the REUs earlier. This is almost just like an REU, except that it's in Germany. It takes place in Germany. So Dodd, D-A-A-D, actually, the first D there stands for Deutschland. It's in German. I don't remember what the other three letters stand for. But this is essentially an all expenses paid summer doing a research internship in Germany. It is STEM specific, though the good news is you do not have to have any German language background for pretty much any of the internship positions, because most of the labs there they conduct themselves in English. This is one that I want to say second year students are eligible to apply for, as are third year students. So though this deadline for Dodd Rise is actually on December 15th, they don't open the actual application until November 1st. So for, nobody's behind on this one by any means yet, but definitely take a look. This is another one that's one of those really great gateways potentially to a Goldwater or what have you. But yeah, really, really great opportunity. So yeah, anyone doing Doris Duke Conservation Scholars or doing the Hollings Scholarship, absolutely should be looking at the UDAL scholarship eventually too. This is another one that's only open to second and third year students or sophomores and juniors. And UF can endorse up to 4 students for this one. But I guess I should technically say can endorse up to 8 students, but there's 2 areas. So 4 per area. The first area is anybody just interested in the environment. So whether that's environmental sciences, conservation, in any area of the environment. So that's why Doris Duke, like, yep, go there next, right? Lots of good opportunities for anybody interested in the environment. The fourth area are students who actually have an interest in the essentially governance or healthcare of tribal populations, indigenous peoples. So 4 for each kind of grouping there. This is my former student from a previous institution, Kylie. She had actually won a really competitive university award. And we were so excited. I remember talking to her, like she had won it. This was great. And then all of a sudden it like dawned on me. I was like, oh my gosh, you can take pretty much that whole application and apply for the UDAL scholarship, which she also went on to win. So that was really great. And again, just goes to kind of show you those important stepping stones of awards. They really do tend to lead to each other. These are what we will call upcoming awards for you. So Truman is a 3rd-year award, Beinecke is a 3rd-year award, and then all of these other awards that are mentioned here are all awards that you will apply to. You will finish your applications at the very start of your senior year. So if you're a 2nd-year student now, you're actually kind of getting into a point where you will hopefully be working on awards kind of constantly moving forward. Because like I said, everyone who just applied for Rhodes and Marshall and Fulbright and Gates, Cambridge and Churchill, now they're starting their graduate applications, right? So this is part of that professional development and investing in yourself, you know, that you all definitely need to be doing. But yeah, these first 2 are 3rd-year awards. And then all of the rest of these are awards that you work on essentially the summer between your 3rd and 4th year. For lots of them, I will tell you, particularly Rhodes, Marshall, Mitchell, Churchill, Gates, Cambridge, and Fulbright, and to a lesser degree, GRFP. Actually also Knight, Hennessy, and Soros. So pretty much all of them. I have summer writing workshops that will be launching in May. And so though the Rhodes scholarship maybe doesn't open up until July 1st, like I said, it really takes months and months of working on your writing to produce a competitive Rhodes scholarship. So we start that process even before the actual application opens. All of these ones that have an asterisk next to it mean that they have a campus deadline. And so this is a really good time for me to kind of mention that. And I'll actually go ahead and use UDAL here as kind of the example. So with UDAL, you can see there's a campus deadline of January 25th. If there is an award that has a campus deadline, it's one of 2 things that's happening. One is that you actually have to be endorsed by UF for the award. And so we are limited in how many students we can put forward for that. For Goldwater, it's 4 or 5. For, you know, UDAL, like I mentioned, it's 4 for one category, 4 for the other category. So we have to actually have a time where you put together application materials and then you compete among your peers here on campus for the UF endorsement. We determine who gets that endorsement, and then typically there's a few weeks of those endorsed students working very closely with me to incorporate feedback from the endorsement committee and polish those applications. Several of them require that I write endorsement letters. Truman does, Beinecke does, Rhodes does, Marshall, Mitchell, Churchill. So there's some other things, you know, that if I haven't worked on you, I haven't worked with you on an award before, some of that is also me getting to know you as we kind of work on polishing that application. So I can talk about you in the context of opportunities here at UF, maybe other interests you have, or even just related interests that you couldn't fit on the application, right? That sometimes happens. I'm working with a Churchill applicant right now who has all this amazing experience, there's no way she can fit it all in the space allotted in the application. So a lot of that's going to end up being my endorsement letter. So yeah, there are some things that have to happen. And so if you do see that campus deadline indication for some of these awards, that's kind of what's going on. Well, the other second possibility, like Fulbright here, we have a campus, and Boren is the other one some of you might be interested in right now. We have a campus deadline for that because we actually have a special feedback process. So you'll again fill out the entire application. We have a group of committee members review it and provide you feedback in advance to improve that application before the national deadline. So you submit it to UF, but then you regain access to it for, again, that polishing. For Fulbright, we actually specifically do a mock interview as well. So those are some good things to kind of be aware of.
So let me touch. I hope you heard one thing there is that we want you to get these. So there is help for you to do that. So don't be intimidated by it, because UF, Dr. Medley and others, will help you with the process. Also, anybody who's thinking about an NSF graduate fellowship, tell me when the spring of your junior year.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to come talk to me spring of your junior year. Okay.
Yeah, that one definitely takes more planning than I think most people also realize.
Yeah.
Not just
I have five.
but,
I have 5 in now that just went in this week. So fingers
for the,
crossed.
yeah, that's right. Today's the last day for the last subject matter because NSF GRFP week.
Yeah.
So some next steps. This is really my last slide. There's my email on there, but a few things, to kind of recap in a little bit are some of the pieces of advice I was kind of already imparting on you, right? So take the relevant courses, plan ahead with those applications, not just for your letter writers, but for your own self, to really, if you're going to put even a little bit of time in it, put in a lot of time so that you are really, you are competitive. I'm very upfront, like Fulbright is a great example. That's a 40 to 50 hour commitment for that application before you turn it in. So not all of them will require that amount of time, but many do. So really think, okay, if it's 40 to 50 hours spread out over a period of like 4 or 5 months, right? That's not so bad when you think about it, but you can't rush those 40 to 50 hours at the end. You won't, I will not be able to give you, 5 revisions within a 24-hour period of something. So really that planning ahead is really, really critical. Establish and cultivate those faculty mentors. I'm pretty sure everybody here is an honors student. I'm actually just today, a colleague and I were emailing back and forth over some things related to letters of recommendation and whatnot. And we're actually going to try to put on a panel, I think the week before Thanksgiving, with just you hearing from some other students about how they've successfully cultivated these relationships with faculty members and internship supervisors and maintain those long term. So we're gonna kind of get to talking about those in some ways you might approach potential.
You'll be sure to let me know when that is scheduled.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I'll pass that on. That sounds great. Yeah.
Yes, we both today were just like, we can do this. So we both had appointments right at the same time that were like, all about that. So yeah, I think everybody kind of needs that. So for sure, I'll let you know. Yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and watch newsletters and social media for opportunities as well. Dr. Donnelly you are all so lucky to have her, is the first thing I will tell you. But she does a really good job of bringing me here kind of annually to do this kind of very quick and broad rundown of award opportunities. And I love doing that, but just as we were talking about, there being that whole workshop on REUs yesterday, watch out for newsletters and various areas of social media. I probably do about 10 different info sessions between March, April, and May on Fulbright alone, right? I have some sessions that I do just on STEM awards. And so they're a much, again, deeper dive than kind of this kind of one I was trying and hopefully making relevant for everybody. But so watch, newsletters and social media, the how certainly for honors students, as well as social media, but look at the UF International Center, look at, course updates that even your faculty members provide about different opportunities and awards. Just kind of be looking in all those places at those different opportunities. Feel like I had something else really important I wanted to say about that. But basically the point is I do a lot of different sort of presentations, themed or even sometimes just on one award if it's Fulbright, which is pretty multifaceted, in a lot of different venues with a lot of different partners across campus for a lot of different reasons. I'm talking tomorrow to actually a Korean class on just different awards, available for people interested in languages. So yeah, just kind of take a look at all of those. Doing your background work is the thing that I think number one, I would like more people to do before they reach out to me. So if you're like, oh, Doris Duke Conservation Scholars, this sounds amazing, right? Go to their website, please. At least read their mission, read their eligibility, right? For a lot of these awards, there's going to be citizenship restrictions. There might be GPA restrictions like we were talking about earlier. So there's a few things that you need to do, because when you email me and are like, I want to know more about this thing, I am assuming that you have at least gone to the website and confirmed that you are even eligible to apply for it. I'm not double checking that because I don't know everybody's citizenship. There's not a way for me to kind of determine all of those things. So do definitely put in a little bit of work and your own research. Many of these awards also actually offer their own webinars. The Critical Languages Scholarship this year is doing some awesome stuff. For all 15 of those languages, they're doing a different info session. So if you're interested in Russian, great, go to the Russian one. If you're, interested in Portuguese, take a look at the Portuguese one. So a lot of these awards, Fulbright has probably too many sessions for the various topics that they have. But there's probably a resource put out there by that award, and you do kind of want to get that information from the horse's mouth. I'm here to help you, obviously, but do take a look at what the offerings are, because there's, they're not trying to hide it. They want you to apply too. And then, yeah, apply. Laying out that timeline, beginning those drafts is really important. Probably the thing I did first thing this morning when I woke up was reviewed 3 different drafts for 3 different awards. I did 4 of them yesterday for 4 other awards. I love editing. I actually really love the revision process and helping students refine their writing. But again, earlier and the more drafts reviewed, the better. I will tell you when you're at a point where you probably don't need more draft reviews. But frankly, I say that very, very, I don't say it very often. So I wish I was able to say it more. So do consider applying. But that's it. And I'm happy to go back and, show a slide if anybody has any particular interest, but feel free, to unmute yourself if you have a question, put something in the chat. You're welcome to kind of, just generally ask questions, or if you want to know more about a particular award, or if you're just also like, I'm good to go, it's dinner time, you're more than welcome to go too. But I'm happy to stay in chat and answer questions.
Let's thank her for all of her time, and we really appreciate it. And I hope you all, I'm gonna do the little clap thing. Thank you guys. I see you're doing the thank yous. It's very nice. Does anybody have a question before we break? I know you guys, your brain's probably hurting from all this information.
Dr. Donnelly.
Yes.
Dr. Medley, I have a question. If I'm looking at a few different internships and fellows trying to get for next summer, and
So Nick, you're kind of breaking up a bunch. It might work better to type in the chat box because you're freezing up.
I'm muted. Potentially also just turn your camera off. I know that sometimes helps me when I'm having bandwidth issues. But whichever one you want to do. Oh, Nick is really frozen up on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else who has a question is more than welcome to, you know, ask as well while we try to recover Nick.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
So when we apply, like, let's say we're selected for one of the scholarships, can we include that on a later application? Like, say I'm a scholar, like a, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. Yes, absolutely. You can do that. So there's this one really incredible woman that I work with. She has won a Gilman, she's won a Fulbright, and now she's a Pickering Fellow, which is paying for her master's degree at Georgetown and guarantees her employment in the Foreign Service upon completion of that master's degree. So like she's, again, one of those who got really good at applying for things, right? And a big part of why you do that is absolutely you keep talking about it. In fact, I'm thinking just there's this particular section on some applications where it will be like, hey, did you win any of these awards? And it wants you to select the ones. For reviewers, that is often like a really big indication of like, hey, this other entity chose to invest in this person. This is somebody who we should really pay attention to, right? Like let's definitely take our time with this application and consider this. So yeah, absolutely. I was also working with a student recently who he did not win the Truman Award, but he was one of our students that we endorsed for it last year. And I was like, Matt, I don't see that like on your list of accomplishments. UF is a huge university and yeah, you didn't win. You're not a Truman Scholar, but just getting endorsed by UF is actually a massive accomplishment, right? So I was like, put that on there. You didn't win, but even put that on there because you at least won, you know, our internal competition, and that's half the battle. So even when you don't win, sometimes that's totally okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these awards all build on each other and they love to see it. So for sure. If you sometimes look at the profiles of like a Rhodes Scholar or Fulbright or somebody like that, you know, they'll have that little paragraph about them and it will be like, oh, Marie, you know, was also a Udall and a Goldwater and a this scholar before becoming a this scholar. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course. So yeah.
Serial award winners.
Yeah, serial award winners. They are a thing for sure. All right, Nick Blumenthal, do we have you?
Yes. Okay. Now it's back, I think.
We do.
So I've just been looking at different fellowships and internships for like the upcoming summer. And with most of these being very competitive, do you recommend applying to multiple of them just in case like you get one and then we just decline the rest?
Sure,
Then,
sure.
100%.
If it's free to apply, apply.
okay. So
Yeah.
just go.
Are any of them NSF REUs?
I haven't looked into this yet, but I have a list just from this meeting that I need to go and do like.
Are
the
you
deep website search.
STEM? Are you STEM?
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually tell kids to apply to 10 all of them because why not? Once you got the whole process down, you go for it because there's no rhyme or reason to what you get picked for in those in particular.
That is sometimes true. That definitely is. But no, we want to put you in that very difficult position to have multiple opportunities to pick from,
Yeah.
right? So I like Dr. Donnelly and I both obviously are at dinner or walkies time right now.
Yes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're
then
welcome to go if you need to.
Now you will see. It's definitely go walk time.
Yeah. But yeah, we want to put you in that position where you have this, you know, terrible problem of choosing from, you know, these wonderful opportunities, right? And I will say too, especially when you get, you know, to some of the awards that are more oriented towards seniors. So one of our Boren scholars from last year, he is applying for a Fulbright and he's applying for the Gaither right now. And Boren, you know, they're kind of it's one of those things where they're waiting on him to do that year of federal service, right? But Boren's letting him defer and defer and defer. They're like, oh, you got a Fulbright? Yes, please go do that. We'll be here when you get back, like, so not all, but some awards, given their timing, will also let you defer and for other opportunities and take advantage of them, the next year. So not all, but that's something we'd rather have you in a position of.
Nick, what's your major?
Physiology and kinesiology.
Nice.
Okay, are you pre-med?
And it's, yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, NIH has, the summer one that you want to look at is NIH, National Institutes of Health. Yeah, on the
I
current,
have looked into a few of those.
Good.
yeah,
Good.
that's a good one for pre-med.
Absolutely.
NSF
Definitely
folks
look
are
into
not
it.
looking for pre-meds, they're looking for pre-PhD.
Yeah, I have seen that difference come up like a few different times with some of these.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like they're looking for a PhD rather than MD.
Yeah.
Dr. Medley, but do you also
NIH is a good one, okay?
Sorry, what
I'll
was
look
that,
into
Nick?
that. And then Dr. Medley, do you have like an office hour sort of thing like yourself, or could I shoot you like an email just like in terms of like what you were saying in terms of like coming up with like a plan of one thing to another plan to another thing? Would I be able to talk to you about that at some point?
Yeah,
and just
absolutely.
Kind of, yeah.
Just email me and kind of give me an idea of like, heard you talk at the URSP thing. Here's some things I might be interested in, just to let me, kind of have some prep before we do meet, but we'll absolutely make an appointment together. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't do office hours except for applicants that I have in progress of certain awards, just because I've found having general office hours means I spend a lot of time not seeing students during that time. But so I mostly am a bio individual. So, but yeah, just absolutely email me and we'll connect.
Anad and Willie, I see you guys hang.
Sounds perfect. Thank you. I'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, I had one thing. So I'm kind of more involved or more interested in like some of the language ones you mentioned, the critical language. That was kind of the one I was looking at, mainly because the Boren, it was a bit too long for my, comfort. It was a bit too long for what I was interested in. So with the critical language, this actually last summer, I had it lined up, or not the critical language, I had something lined up in China. I was going to go study Chinese because that's what I've been studying for the last like three years or so. Yeah. Obviously, with all this, it got canceled, but that was something I was kind of apprehensive about for upcoming semesters with this stuff. Like if I were to apply, say I were to, somehow get it, how would that work? Like, are they willing to, you mentioned like one of the Boren students you had, they deferred or they were saying, oh, they waited, but that was something I was worried about. Is that something, like I would need to be worried about, or they would, work around it?
So the answer is it depends. And actually, even just hearing you say CLS and Boren, because I had students in both, for the situations last summer, CLS for some of the languages, including Chinese, actually ended up doing an intensive institute online. And I was really skeptical, but the student that we had that won, like her Chinese skills are off the charts. I mean, they were already pretty good and she's been, like taking classes and doing, but she's a second year student now. She's actually a chemistry major. So I think like yourself, like not able to have a ton of time, right, to like go abroad for like a year to learn it. But she improved drastically. She and I were both actually really skeptical going into it, but we were like, it's free still. What else are you doing, at your parents' house this summer? Like, go for it, right? And she ended up having a great time. It was actually surprisingly really incredibly well done. So CLS, and actually CLS is now trying for some of the other languages that they didn't do over the summer, they're actually making a fall option for still online for a lot of them. So CLS kind of has done that approach, and it's surprisingly worked incredibly well. And then Boren is just like, we're letting you all defer. When it's safe to travel to that country, we'll get you there. For something like Chinese, it may end up being one of those things where like, say China doesn't let US citizens in for a while, but Taiwan is like, come one, come all, right? They may end up like kind of saying like, okay, we still really want to work with you to do this, But China it doesn't seem like it's going to happen for quite a while. Can we look at Taiwan? Can we look at Mongolia even potentially, right? Some parts of that. Like, so Boren is great because they really do want to make it happen and they will work with you. It just may not end up being like this sort of first choice, or initial thing that you applied for. But yeah, with the STEM exception that Boren offers, I would suggest you apply for both CLS and Boren each year until you get one of them at least.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great rest of your night.
Yep, you too.
So yes.
So Willie, you're hanging on for a question?
Yeah, Dr. Medley and Dr. Donnelly, I don't want to take too much of your time, but Dr. Medley, all of that information was super useful. I'm in environmental engineering, so everything on the Doris Duke and the NOAA sounds super interesting, the Hollings, and I'll certainly keep my eye out for that and do some more research on it. And I appreciate you pointing those out.
Doris Duke is like this really great, like well-hidden secret. And the fact that UF students even have this like a leg up on people nationally, for it, it's like, why don't more people know about this?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I had not heard of it before you told us today. So I'm glad I attended. I wasn't able to do the session yesterday. I had a test, but I'll be sure to watch that and when it comes out, Dr. Donnelly.
Okay.
I had a quick side question. I'm not sure if you know anything about this, but given that you do prestigious scholarships, if you don't know about it, it's probably a good indicator. I keep getting emails about and I got a physical letter too from like Golden Key.
Golden Key. I
know where he's going with this.
I did some research and I'm getting conflicting messages that it's kind of an oversaturated honor society, but that UF has a good chapter. So I'm just not exactly sure what to think.
What do you know about it, Kelly? What do you know?
What do you think?
I guess I also know conflicting opinions of it. I think it's so you're right in that UF actually has a really active chapter of it. I would say that UF's chapter, though active and thus probably one of the better ones, does have a pretty narrow focus in kind of the activities that they do. And so with all honors societies, with very little exception, do I typically say like, hey, you should totally do that, pay the whatever fee and become a member of it. It does open you up typically to other scholarship opportunities, networking, etc. But they all have to be ones that like you actually take advantage of.
Right.
Because if you don't, well, then your membership isn't worth it, right? Like same with being in the honors program all the time. I tell people like, great, you're in the honors program, but like if you can't articulate what is helping you, during your time here at UF, then nobody cares that you were in the honors program.
What you make out of it.
Yeah, it's really about what you get out of it. So I would say maybe look more into UF's chapter and kind of decide for yourself if you think that it would be something, that you would actually derive benefit from.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, I was the advisor.
Oh, really?
After the advisor they had got arrested. So the advisor before that got arrested. So I was a little nervous about becoming the advisor because they all get arrested.
Not a good track record.
Right. So I stepped in to help them out, and I actually resigned after that year because I felt there was a conflict with URSP. I did not, all you guys are going to get that invite. And I did not feel I did not feel comfortable recommending one thing over another for you guys.
That makes sense.
So I stepped back, and what I want to tell you is there are 1,001 clubs at UF, some of which are in your field.
Right.
And it doesn't matter which one you pick. You pick the one you like, you go to a meeting, check it out, see the people. And whatever you do, you start looking around, like Dr. Medley said, for leadership opportunities. Golden Key does some community stuff. They do meetings, they have talk. I mean, they do things. But there's 990 to look at, right?
Right.
So, yeah, just find the one
it's that relevance
feels
aspect
good
of it.
Yeah.
If it's, and I talk about doing things that are relevant. You don't have to be terribly narrowly focused. If you end up going, you like the people, you like the conversations, you like the activities they do, then to me, that's great. And that's worth it. It may not fit perfectly on a Doris Duke application, but that's okay. It doesn't all have to do that, you know, but you want to make sure you're also supplementing that with the activities that do help you.
Right. It could
And
be.
they were nice students. I didn't resign because of the students. I made it clear that they were very nice kids.
Yeah.
You
But
didn't get
you're
arrested.
totally right.
Yeah, I did not get arrested, so that worked out well.
Yeah, you broke the.
Actually, I lied. The last one before me got arrested. The one before that just got fired.
Okay.
Just fired.
So, yeah. So
Potentially could have been arrested, probably.
I was a better choice.
Yeah. He was better than the other two.
Yeah. And just by staying out of jail and not getting fired, there was a pretty low.
The low bar for sure there.
All right, well, let's let Dr. Medley go.
Yeah. Thanks so much for offering all that.
Absolutely.
insight.
I look forward to hearing from you as well.
Yeah, I'm
All
Willie,
right.
by the way. Dr. Donnelly knows me, but you know, it always says Willie.
It's nice meeting you.
Willie's a repeat workshop attendee.
I try.
That's good.
Yeah,
You learn
that's
new
right.
things every time.
He's been asking, okay, can I just tell you, he's been asking about high prestige scholarships since before he matriculated in the fall.
Ooh, I like those.
So you will hear from him again because he has been asking questions that you don't usually ask before you even start your freshman year.
I really appreciate Dr. Donnelly, of course, doing all these workshops. They're always super helpful. And I appreciate Dr. Medley.
All right, I'm gonna go walk these dogs.
Yeah. Have a good evening.
All right, you
Have a good
too.
weekend.
Bye. Have a good
right.
night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Did you hear me say I'm gonna walk? Okay, I'm gonna walk the dog, but first I have to, wait, I gotta log off first. Hold on.